So welcome to Benny's Designs. Excuse me, I wanted to make a video about my Derwent art bars, and they are water soluble wax bars for creative marks and texture. But as usual, I want to use them in a colour book. So I have the 36, which came in a wonderful little box set like this. But then I found some another odd box, so I've got 44, I think. So I've put them all in colour order as I like them, going from pale to yellow, to purple, to blue, to dark blue, to green, to turquoise greens, pale greens, and then I've got some fawns and unusual colours, then browns, and then greys and black. And I can see what they're called if I really need to. And I'm working in the Daydreams, Hannah Carlson's Daydreams. I love this book. So I've been scratching colour on, if you can see, just scratching a bit of colour and then activating it with a brush. And I didn't like my other brush, so I've gone to this. If you use the Derwent number 1, it's actually worn off now, but it's a Derwent number 1 water brush. It's quite fine and it's quite dry, so it works really well. So I've scratched some colour on, so I'm going to zoom in and you can see it's always slightly easier using a colour brush. So if I zoom right in, you can see what I'm doing. And because it's a watercolour, I can go back in and reactivate that. Now really you shouldn't do that on a watercolour page, because it'll buckle. So I'm just going in. Now that was a little bit damp, was that, but as long as you keep an eye on the water, you can manipulate. Now obviously if you're in a watercolour book, then you're fine. So what I wanted to do was just manipulate this, and these art bars are very, very similar to the Neocolor 2s. They're all wonderful watercolour in stick form, and you get they've got some quite unusual colours. And you just manipulate this. Now I could have actually put a little bit of a darker colour in there as well, but the idea was it was a mint dress. I just like the colour. And they've got some unusual names, these art bars. But they're wonderful for colour books. Of course you can manipulate the colour round. Now I wouldn't really go dark to light. I always try to go light to dark. So what I'm going to do is just manipulate this gorgeous dark. Then I'm going to clean the brush. And then go back in. Now, if it's a little bit too wet, just dry it on a tissue, not a baby wipe, because the baby wipe is going to be that bit too wet. Just seem to have a hair on that, but I think that's kind of mixing quite nicely. And of course the wonderful, wonderful watercolours. Now, I've got a little bit of a buckle on there, so if I let that dry it should be fine. So just go in and manipulate the colour. Now I have got a white there, so I need to push the white out. I'd like to push the white. If I could, push the white out. trying to keep it as dry as possible because I don't want really any buckling. I do like this particular book, so, and it's fairly good paper. It takes a decent size damp brush, and I just thought it would be quite nice to manipulate a little bit of colour. So I'm hoping I can just take that down there, and of course I'm going to try to find a vibrant red. Now, I don't have the full set of these, but I'm hoping, because I do quite like the way it's working. So you can get a quite nice effect on this, and because it's a watercolour you can go back in. So I always say I don't like the watercolour brushes, but this is the driest one. And it's the better behaved of them as well, so it means you can get a nice effect. I might try the number 2 because it's a slightly bigger. It's a bigger brush. I think maybe you need to be in a little bit bigger brush. If I'd have dotted some dark in as well, then I would have been able to manipulate that. So you put the colour in that you want when it's dry, and then you manipulate it with a damp brush, and that's going to give you your watercolour effect without messing up buckling your page too much. And again, the really nice thing is you don't actually have to go bother back into it at all. It's already done for you. And you just want that brush to keep giving a little bit of colour all the time. So you can get some quite nice effects. So I'm going to do the excuse me, I'm going to do the mushroom. So I would say the biggest brush for the bigger spaces and the tiny one for the tiny spaces. So I haven't got a colour swatch for these, I just have to kind of guess. A strawberry I think might be quite nice. Excuse me. I think I want kind of a bit of a white highlight. I've got some kind of red going on. And then we've got some kind of deepy red going on. And the idea is, I would think, you mix them now, so they're very much like the Neocolor 2s and Faber-Castells. It's a watercolour crayon art bar, but they are more pigmented, and they are basically a professional watercolour in stick form. I don't have a carmine, but I do have an Elysian crimson, which looks quite dark and kind of like burnt carmine. I think that's going to give me quite a nice bit of shadow around the edges. So I will be using the number 1, and I'm going to dry it on a damp baby towel first. Just actually clean that bit off because I do want this white highlight, and then manipulate that colour around. This is dry now, so I can put my hand on it. So you can get a really nice mushroom effect by using these. So these are quite nice to use and really nice vibrant colours as well. So you can get our Elysian crimson in there. Then kind of strawberry red. White highlight in there before we lose it. And a rich strawberry colour. Excuse me, and then we're going there with the white. Blend all that gorgeous colour together. And then clean the brush because we don't want that pink, because we want that nice white highlight again. Back down to that. So if you're not sure, you can put your hand over that one or your hand over that one and decide which one you like. And there's some really nice earthy colours, they've called them. So there's a beige, There's a paprika, and there's kind of like a praline colour which I'm going to use as a kind of a shadow colour. So you can either put colour in and manipulate it, or you can going to get some colour in there. So you know that when you start mixing those colours together, you are going to get quite an unusual effect, and that's because the colours are really vibrant. And very little water is needed. Go back in there. You can go back in there. This is watercolour, so you can go back in and darken it a bit later, just to get some colour down. So I like a dark green and a very dark green and a white, because I've kind of got a bit of a hook for taking something from white to almost black. Just do this section down here. So that was white. Sorry, Alfie, this is bright green. So we're just going to want a little bit of bright green in the middle. And there's a lot of corners. Sorry, apologies for that. There's a lot of corners on these, so it's quite easy to kind of keep it within the line. And you want it scratching a bit of colour, because what you can do is manipulate it with that small brush, so you don't need to go near the line. If you haven't got a point or you're worried about it, just don't go near the line. Now the white I'm using is called opaque white, so in theory that's quite that's going to be quite a strong colour. And then I'm going in here with a very deep, this one's called Dark Forest, and again it can be just the tiniest blob, because it will come out as a watercolour. There's dark forest and there's a dark indigo and a midnight. All of those would have given quite a nice effect. So again, you start with the white, blend in the green, and again that's just that bit too wet for me. So you blend with the white, and then you draw the dark out. It's just going to be a bit too wet, that, so I'm going to change to a small number 3 rigger. And I'm just happier with a rigger, really. Just keeps more control over it. You do have to clean your brush and dry it on a baby wipe, a damp baby wipe. But you can eventually manipulate all that dark exactly where you want it. And if you're not happy, just go back in there. Because this is watercolour, it's not Inktense, this will keep blending as many times as you want, because it's a pure watercolour in an art bar. So again, do the whites first and then gently manipulate that. You can always go back. You can always go back in later, but let it dry first. Mustn't get it too wet, because on watercolour paper that's fine, but this is a colour book. And I like the fact that with a little bit of messing about, you've finished that page, you don't have to go back to it now. You need to twist your brush. Sorry, there could be a bark alert. You need to twist the brush. When you rinse your brush, I have a little inkwell that I use for my water, and then you need to twist the brush to a point. So yes, and manipulate that round, and then take that up if you want. If you take that right up, you will lose your highlight, but that one's in a shadow. I think I much prefer, I have to say, I much prefer a damp rigger, because this is pure watercolour, so you don't have any harsh things to do. You just want to touch gently. I think I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. I think they could be kind of orange, and it reminds me of mistletoe, does this? But because I'm not sure, I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to move up. So we've got some more toadstools or mushrooms. So again, I think I'm going back to my rigger. The water brushes are just a little bit too wet. If that's going to be reds and thingies, this could be oranges. And I think we'll do it backwards. I think we'll have the darkest on the outside. So we've got strawberry on the outside, and because they're very, very soft and creamy, the slightest scratch of colour and you don't need to get near the edge because you can manipulate that colour. And I'm going to put white in the middle to give it a really nice highlight effect. So rule of 3 but with white, which I'm not sure if it is that rule of 3. I can't remember what the rule of 3 is. It's using 3 colours, but so that's primary red, and then we have strawberry for the darkest and tertiary orange. So I'm going in with number 3 graduate Daily Rounding Rigger because that's my fave, in the middle, and then kind of do one at a time. And by the time you've manipulated all that gorgeous colour, and I have to say, very well pigmented, beautiful, pure watercolour. For blending and for colour, really nice, very strong. Oh, I thought that was a bit of black. It's a bit of dark colour that I must have picked up. So it's going to shadow that one. But it's a colour book. And again, a really nice way of working. You're working with watercolours and strong colours this time. Yeah, not my normal wishy-washy ones. And quite vibrant colours. So they're behaving quite well, and as per usual, eventually this cloth will get quite dirty and quite damp. That might even be enough, just a wet baby wipe. That's just how little water you need. Bearing in mind that it's almost scratched with pure colour. It's not how we normally work. Not scratching a bit of colour in and manipulating it. Excuse me, we're filling the whole page with colour. Every scrap of page is being covered, and there's the tiniest little bit of a crinkle, but not very much, but I love the colours. So she's sitting on a throne, and she's got a bird on her arm, and she's a princess sitting on her throne, so we're going to have a red velvet. I think red velvet's the or green velvet. I think normally it's red velvet. I don't have any gold. Although we could have yellow, I suppose. There's a mango colour, and I think primary red and orange is going to be the seat. So the primary red would be there and there, and then we'd have kind of a highlight, and then primary red would be there. And we'd have a shadow. Now that's a pinky red. I don't really want a pinky red. What? There's burnt umber. I think burnt umber. Or deep purple. I think a burnt umber is going to make that red. Stand out. So, damp brush, twist to a point, and then we're going to manipulate that round to there, and then the deep red. And then we need this bit here, so again you don't have to go to the edge because you've got all this fantastic watercolour, and then manipulate that for quite a nice shadow effect. For the seat. So the same on the other side. We've got the highlight, and again you don't need to be anywhere near the edge because you're going to manipulate that colour around. So we need to activate the lightest first, and then take that red down to form the normal colour, and then we want red. And I'm just going to try to see if I can just rectify that just a bit. So that's going to be dark and light, so we need the red in the middle. And the orange. And I think we're going to use bit of Elysian crimson. And even though it's a fairly big space, as long as we manipulate it gently with a small amount of water, we're going to get a wonderful, rich, deep watercolour, but no buckling and a lovely soft blend to create a shadow effect behind that. Now, one thing you must do is turn the page so you're moving away from yourself. So we can manipulate that again, just gently, and that's created a shadow there. Now I'm not quite sure what's going to happen around this corner, but I need to push the colour up to there. So carefully, it's a bit damp, is that? So you can just squeeze it between your fingers so that it's just damp, and then we can manipulate this. Right, make something out of this and manipulate that into there. Now, the other thing we can do is go back in there and just create a little bit of a shadow a bit later, but I just want to see, turn very carefully so don't make everybody sick, how that looks. So I did get a little bit of wet on there. Now these are pure colour, so if you get any water on these, they're going to just melt. They're like the Near Colour 2s, they will melt. And so we've got a little bit more here, so I'm going to put a bit more highlight at this side. Oops, and that was a little bit near her arm, but it doesn't matter. Must have been the strawberry one that I used. I didn't think it was. No, I thought it was the red one. Once it's dried, you can go back in. It's a watercolour. You can go back in. You shouldn't really do it while it's wet, so I didn't want to lose that. I just cannot decide which colour I used. I think it was this one. Again, a damp brush, manipulate that gorgeous colour, and then start mixing it with the red. So it doesn't take long, and again it's a nice quiet peaceful way of working. Yeah, you've picked the crayon up, or the art bar, you've put the colour on, and then just a soft brush to manipulate that round. So it's just really kind of really soft and simple. And turn it round carefully so you can manoeuvre that colour where you want it. And if it's a bit wet, don't touch the corner, just touch the back. It takes that extra wet away, but leaves the colour on the end exactly as you had it, so you're not touching that in any way. So I didn't think I'd like these as much, but the colour is so wonderful. It's very much like the Derwent pencils. You know, the pigment is just absolutely amazing. So I'm not sure if we're going to have a blonde or a brunette yet. We'll have to wait and see. And you know, just if you can't get, even if you can't get in at all, you can use the paintbrush. You don't have to spoil anything. You can use the paintbrush to manipulate it. So we'll get that orange going, and then we'll mix in that red. And then by the time you get down here, you're going to have enough colour to do what you have to do without too much work. And really, you should work away from yourself, because you want a nice mix. So again, you dunk the paintbrush and twist it, and manipulate that orange again, and then touch that red. And then if you've got any left, you can take it anywhere else you want it. And the trick is to do it while it's upside down, is to do the other side as well. And if it's too wet, you just nip the brush gently twice. You still got the colour and the flow at the bottom of the brush, you're not disturbing that. And then you can still manoeuvre that round. And that is quite wet, so I'm going to dry that off and then manipulate that orange again. So, oops, I quite like that. And it's fairly quick. That's fairly quick. I can't decide on a hair colour, and I can't decide on the side unless I put some red on there. So I'm just going to do this big mushroom behind her. So again, we've got the white that we wanted on top. So we've got quite a lot of white there, and it's supposed to be opaque, is this, so we could actually do the little white dots as well, but I have a plan for those if this doesn't work, so I'm not going to be quite as upset about that. So we'll put that on there, and then here some more white. So that's the white, and it says white opaque. And then we had, it was the pinky red, wasn't it? I don't think I used both. I'm not sure. I think I used both actually. I think I used the red. This was the highest red though, because this is the lightest colour then. I do have a corner on this side, so you can do with a bit of a... And then we'll see what that does before we put and that was a strawberry one. So I'm going to use a bigger brush for this. That's the biggest one I have for there. I think I might use the water brush for this. Oh no, I'm going to use the rigger. I'm going to use the rigger, but I'm going to have to turn the mushroom upside down. So we've got the white, and then we've got to manoeuvre that. And we've still got to be fairly careful because we do not want to really go over the lines, but we want a really nice, rich I kind of want a nice rich blend. And these are really, really well behaved, these colours. The pigment in them is bursting out, really is. Really wants to kind of come out and sing. Wants to come out and sing that one. So we're going to work this way first, and then when we've got a good, fairly nice dark nice mixture, we're going to come back and incorporate that highlight into that. So this time I've done the darks first because it was going to be too difficult. Too many things to go in and out of. So that's fairly near, and if I turn it round you'll see that the bottom seems to be better blended than the top. Again, it would be too wet, so we'll bring that down, and then we'll kind of blend that up. Now I would have preferred it to be orange, but you can't have everything. But I did need to blend this in. difficult working upside down, but so I've got some kind of I like the yellow ochre. And I'm going to do the pale first. And then we can mix that in. And then take that to the top. And you get a really nice kind of shadow. And so this one will kind of have shadowy bits in it. That's the wheat one, that one. Oops. Start with the palest first. And I haven't gone quite as strong colours this time. I thought we'd just have some kind of subtle colours kind of floating about, just to give a, oops, it's a bit too wet, that sense that it's definitely just have a very soft mushroom effect. So I do intend to finish this one off, but again, really like working with watercolours. My art bars, and again, really vibrant, but it's just a watercolour, so you've got the versatility to be very dark or very light. So thank you for watching, end of part 1.